Comcast is actually looking to sell MSNBC. And this is, quite a big deal because to me, MSNBC is sort of the yin to Fox News's yang, if that makes sense, Ben. That, there is this highly conservative, we don't really talk about a lot of other views here. And then there's MSNBC where they really have their own echo bubble. Ben, what do you think about MSNBC in general? Are they good for the country?
Personally, I would say no. I think MSNBC is notorious, particularly amongst conservative circles, for being very biased and actually expressing some things that if you kind of step back from their echo chamber and just take a look at them objectively are really insane. And I think particularly since the Trump era has arrived, just some of the rhetoric they've been forwarding has been rather shocking, particularly as someone who doesn't regularly follow MSNBC. Whenever I do see a clip or a segment from MSNBC, it's kind of shocking that these things are being said in like mainstream primetime television. So I don't think they're good for the country, and I'm hoping this signals a tide shift where media companies are realizing that that is not playing as well as it used to and that they've gone too far.
I think you're right on the point, Ben. I want to get your reaction to a couple of headlines. These are just two that I pulled out this week. The first one, this comes from MSNBC. Marjorie Taylor Greene says MAGA is now mainstream. ... So was slavery. And Joy Reid had a Yale psychiatrist on her show who urged liberals to shun their Trump-supporting family over the holidays, that there were irreconcilable differences between, Trump and Harris voters. And if you've got family, if you've got a cousin, if you've got an uncle who voted for Trump, they voted against you, and you should cut this person off. Don't have them over for Thanksgiving. Ben, what about this is not resonating with people? Why is MSNBC kind of flailing?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. First is if somebody's telling you to cut off contact with your friends and family because they have different opinions than you probably shouldn't listen to those people. Also, it's interesting to me how, particularly in the last couple election cycles, we've gotten to the point where your political opponents, mostly when the left is referring to the right, are not just people that have different opinions than you. They're not just people that have a different vision of the country or the future than you. They're the literal devil. And we've reached a point where, the left is just so extremist, not only in their political opinions and policies, but socially, to the fact where even though the majority of America has supported Donald Trump, they're still going to say, oh, all of those people are radicals. And the thing is, that argument doesn't hold up. In order to be radical, you kind of have to be fringe. So if the majority of Americans support something, it's probably not radical.
And I tell you, Ben, I watch MSNBC a lot more than I think you do. And we've seen exactly those kind of claims where people say, what went wrong with this election? Like, why were we not tuned in? And they go, no, it's not that we weren't tuned in. It's that half of America is bad. And I think that ultimately summarizes what MSNBC is largely pushing is this idea that it's not a political issue. It's not an issue of hey, how do we see the world? How do we see the country? What's the best way to go about these, shared issues? But it is a moral issue, right? It is, you are a bad person for believing in the things that you believe and for not believing the things that I believe. And this is the kind of messaging that I think we see gets repeated just 24/7. And, I think we've all read the op-eds or seen even maybe firsthand, some of our liberal friends who feel like they lost like an uncle or a cousin to Fox News, right? Who they go, man, we used to like have engaging conversations, and now all they can do is just repeat whatever they've seen on TV. And I think particularly in the 2020, and on kind of cycle, this has become the left, that they have started to really get in that echo chamber and can't quite see out of it.
I agree. But again, I'm hoping this signals a tide shift. Something that was really surprising to me, looking at the numbers, is MSNBC isn't just performing poorly enough that they're being sold. They're being wildly outperformed by Fox News, which has always been popular, but they're gaining a lot of viewers. And right now, I think on average they have double the viewership of MSNBC. And beyond even that, Tucker Carlson is killing MSNBC with viewership. And to be fair, Twitter views are counted differently than television views. But still, like if you compare the numbers, Tucker seems to be getting way more attention than MSNBC is. So I'm hoping that, even people very high up in the corporate world are realizing, oh, this doesn't seem to be working. Maybe we need to reevaluate and try something new.
Well, and that's exactly what we've seen happen at somewhere like CNN, who I think it's been really interesting to follow along. Several months ago, they had new leadership put into place, and their new leadership had a mandate that said, not enough people are watching us because they view us, whether or not we are, they view us as being too one-sided. And so now, our panel shows, they've all got to, contain some version of a conservative, just so that way we have a voice at the table, and maybe people who don't agree with 5 out of 6 people on the panel might still listen in because they're curious what they're going to say to rebut, this one person who maybe they do agree with.
Yeah, it is interesting that they're doing this token to impartiality, but I think it's going to be too little too late, and I don't think it's going to be enough to stop the exodus of people leaving networks like MSNBC and going to places like Fox News, Tucker Carlson, or even other outlets.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that people are, hopping from Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow over to Tucker Carlson.
Fair enough.
That's quite the jump in commentator. But yeah, I think it's really important that these people are changing, even if, as you said, maybe too little, too late.